We're live again, a grin. We're a grinning, and we're live with Dr. Kris Boosterhausen. How are you, Dr. Kris?
I'm good. Not a bad Tuesday. It was a little brisk this morning when we woke up, a little crisp in the air. So going to the gym this morning was a little colder than usual, but we got through it.
You had to wear something beside a t-shirt today. A little
exactly. There was pullover day for sure.
Well, we're going to talk about sleep today, one of my favorite topics, but let me roll this intro and we'll get going here. If you're like most folks Dr. Kris Boosterhausen works with, you're active, you want to take ownership of your health, and you want to age gracefully. The problem is there is so much conflicting information out there about health and wellness, it's tough to know who to trust. Most providers are limited by what insurance will approve, so it can seem like they're only able to help you manage your health decline with more meds. On the Dr. Kris Life Podcast, you'll learn how you can regain your confidence in your health journey. You'll learn helpful knowledge about programs, supplements, peptides, and hormones that Dr. Kris has used with thousands of patients just like you to help them crush their goals and be their best selves. So if you're ready to take charge of your health and are wanting to stay active and healthy so you can be a better parent, partner, or lover, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Dr. Kris Podcast. He's a Texan. He's a doctor. He's got a German name.
It's actually a town in Germany.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I lived in Germany for a little bit, so I'm trying to pronounce German, even though I'm American, I always mess it up. I try to pronounce them right, but it's always a dilemma when you're talking to an American with a German name.
Yeah, because you always in the intro you do my name with a little German inflection there, and so
Wusterhausen.
Actually, Dr. Seeds, that's the funny thing is when they announce me, he always gets on the mic and goes, Dr. Wusterhausen, like golly, it's very, it's funny.
So today we're talking about the impact of sleep on your weight and your overall health. I was having a little problem sleeping this weekend, and I was grumpy. But ice cream was sure looking good. I noticed my cravings for ice cream were interesting. I don't think it's bad as long as it's good ice cream, but it's amazing how it can upset your day. It may be the way that I was approaching problems or challenges. You enter it more in a negative mindset. It's a big deal. And I think a lot of people don't realize that their sleep is not as good as it could be.
Yeah, and also that our sleep typically worsens as we age. And so when I talk to patients, especially when they're not that old, of course, isn't relative what is old as we get older, right? I used to think 51 seemed like an old guy. Now I think it's a pretty young guy since I'm 51. But anyway, yeah, I think it's really obviously. I think that everyone understands that the better we sleep, the better we feel, right? Like, I don't think there's many people out there that are going to say, "Oh, I slept 3 hours and I feel fabulous." At least not on a long-term basis. You might be able to sustain a night like that, but very few of us can sustain multiple nights like that. The other thing is, as our sleep worsens as we age, I find so many people just accept that. Like that's just the way it is. It's the way it's going to be. I'm certainly a person that has had times of struggling with sleep. I definitely take my stressors to bed with me. Some people can be stressed as all get out, lay their head on a pillow and go to sleep. When I'm stressed, my brain just doesn't really want to stop. And that's where I really struggle. And so, yeah, it's a common problem that many of us have, and it creates a lot of issues, and it typically worsens if we don't jump on top of it.
There's a lot of things that could be impacting it. I think is the problem when you think, all right, I want to figure out what my issue is and fix it. But there's a lot of things that you have to consider. It could be your diet. It could be the caffeine. It could be the room, the temperature. It could be something going on with your health. There's a lot of things to try to diagnose here. And how do you approach that?
So sleep, I always joke whenever I lecture and when I give lectures, I always try to say the handful of things that can drive me crazy, but also make me really excited when I help a patient. Fatigue, that's that generic one that could be so many things. Poor sleep is absolutely in that category. Libido, because they're things that are rarely one issue causing the problem, right? It's typically like we have to. So typically when I address sleep or go after sleep, I usually say I always say it's a multifaceted approach. We have to change most of the time our whole lifestyle. We have to change habits. Just because you were able to do that and get away with it in your 20s and 30s doesn't mean we're going to get away with it in our 40s and 50s. Sleep hygiene is so important, and we can go over that in a bit if we want. Um, really one of the big sayings, and by the way, I have not been able to convince my wife of this. The bed is really only for two things if you want to have proper sleep, okay? Sex and sleep. That's what the bed is for. The TV is a big player in most everybody's bedroom. It is a very big negative on our sleep. The light that it emits, the fact it's keeping your brain going. My wife claims, we always joke that she claims she can't sleep without the TV. Unfortunately, that's just a habit she's gotten into that I have yet to be able to break. So every night I usually go to sleep with like 4 blankets on my head, trying to keep the light from keeping me awake until she falls asleep, and then I'm able to get my good sleep. Or better sleep at least. So yeah, everything you said plays a role, and we can kind of go through that. But yeah, diet, nutrition, exercise, the timing of exercise. It's really important if you can to exercise first thing in the morning. I think there's multiple reasons for that. If you exercise right before you go to bed, guess what? All your endorphins are gone up. You're amped. You're energetic. You're not ready to go to bed now. Two, AMPK, which we always talk about the balance between AMPK and mTOR. As we get older, mTOR becomes kind of dominant, and we want to be AMPK dominant. That's what our body wants to be well. You can increase AMPK by A, getting a good night's sleep, B, exercising in the morning. And so there really is something to timing of exercise. One of the biggest things I see, people eating and going to bed. There's the studies that prove that, let's say you're on the road, you're business entertaining. You normally go to bed at 10. You normally eat dinner at 7. You quit eating, maybe you have a snack at 8, but nothing for a couple hours, and you go to bed. It's proven that, let's say you take your business people out and you go have a big steak dinner at 9:30. It's actually better to wait 2 hours before you go to bed and get up at the same time. So less sleep, but your sleep will be better. It will be less interrupted. You'll actually feel better in the morning versus like it's 10:30. I'm in my bedroom. Or my hotel room going to sleep. So it's little things that you can do to really make changes that we can slowly kind of go into. But yeah, sleep is rarely ever a one thing problem.
Yeah, alcohol is another thing we haven't mentioned.
Mhm.
You think if I have a drink, then I'm going to get sleepy and I'm going to go to sleep faster, but it disturbs your deep sleep.
Actually, let's take that even further. Let's say alcohol and THC. There's a lot of THC sleep products out there, and you have to be a little bit careful with THC as well. THC is not legal in Texas. Let me make that statement. But, we're talking to people maybe who are not in Texas, or maybe people who go to other states and bring it back. I'm more of a CBD kind of guy for sleep. But THC does a good job. Alcohol does a good job, right, of putting you to sleep. You drink, crash. But that would probably bring me into my next point. If you're really going to concentrate on your sleep, you must have some form of sleep monitoring. You need an objective data tool that tells me if Steve Brown is sleeping better, worse, or the same. I recommend the Aura Ring. I always joke I have no affiliation with Aura. It's just something I've used for many years, and I love the Aura Ring. It's just a little ring that you wear that monitors things from your temperature to your heart rate variability, to your heart rate, your exercise, but then your sleep stages. How many times you woke up? How much deep sleep? How much REM sleep did you get? Because there was a study many years ago, and basically what I tell patients, this would make sense, but like let's say you had some person sleeping beside you, and every 20 minutes they just shook you just a little bit, like not enough for to wake you up enough that you realize they did it, but just enough to wake you up to get you out of REM or deep sleep. And you could do that, let's say you slept for 8 hours, you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like you slept 2-3 hours because you didn't get the uninterrupted sleep. So alcohol, THC, that's what it does. It doesn't allow us get into the deep or the REM sleep. It causes frequent awakenings. So even though we think we're sleeping better, if you had an objective data tool to monitor that, you would quickly realize that, wow, I sleep a lot better when I don't drink alcohol versus when I do drink alcohol. So probably the biggest tip of the day I give everyone is no matter what you try, you need some form of objective measurement tool that you can see if your sleep is actually changing. Is it changing for the better? The funny part is nearly every morning I wake up, I can tell what that ring is going to say by how I feel in the first 10 minutes of walking around. If I'm sluggish and tired, oh crap, my sleep score is bad. Man, I feel pretty good this morning. Oh, wow, sleep score is good. It's amazing how that goes together, how a good night's sleep changes everything. We talked about stress. It's a double-edged sword, right? Stress keeps you from sleeping good, but the best way to deal with stress is a good night's sleep. And so, working on, this is something I've tried to do personally, but maybe it's yoga, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's these different apps that are out there now that can help you with calming the brain down whenever you're going to sleep, avoiding blue lights, or if you are going to, I haven't done this, but you can change out light bulbs in your house. Definitely what I do try to do is by 8 p.m., we try to go to bed at 10:30, is to actually turn all of the bright lights off and just work off of lamps or those sorts of things, like this ring light that's shining in my face right now, turning these types of bright lights off earlier in the evenings. Of course, I wear glasses. So all the glasses I do get the blue blocking type whatever film on it, but still gets past your glasses. So the best way is just to turn those lights off. You start preparing the brain for sleep, get that circadian rhythm moving in the right direction. But, and then let me just forget this. Sorry, Steve. Keeping a schedule is the biggest thing, especially my retirees. You have to keep a schedule. You can't go to bed tonight at 10, tomorrow 11:30, the next day 9:45. You need a schedule. Try to stick to it. Even when you travel, try to stick to it. We went to Vegas this weekend. We didn't do a good job, but try to stick with your time zone schedule if you can. It keeps that circadian rhythm from being confused.
So, sleep impacts your weight, but your weight, if you're overweight, impacts your sleep. It seems like kind of it's the chicken or the egg type thing.
Yeah, it's that double-edged sword again, right?
Yeah. How, why does being overweight impact your sleep, number one?
Well, so I guess I would just kind of talk you about it in a circular motion, right? And so there's physical reasons why we don't sleep well when we're overweight. Could be reflux disease because, as we get a bigger belly, we have a higher incidence of reflux. Reflux is going to be that acid that flushes up into the back of our throats, waking us up through the night. We have a higher incidence of sleep apnea because we got bigger, thicker necks. And so now we're snoring, or we're actually, if we have sleep apnea, stopping breathing. Those things are going to lead to poor sleep. But then you kind of get into the fact that when most people, the stats show the majority of people overweight are also insulin resistant. That insulin resistance, as we sleep, kind of goes into that poor diet. Like one of the biggest habits of Americans is, I always joke, but is eating the cookie on the way going to bed, like literally that bedtime snack, which I meet very few people who have a healthy bedtime snack. I think it's good to actually go to bed with a fairly halfway empty stomach. That goes back to that talking about not eating before we go to bed. Some people think, I just sleep better when I have a full stomach. That's again where I would encourage them to sleep monitor. I think they'll find that's exactly the opposite of what is true. So the circadian rhythm and growth hormone have so much to do with each other. So when we're hyperinsulinemic, or especially if we're not hyperinsulinemic and we eat sugar or carbs before we go to bed, that causes an insulin spike. That insulin spike coincides with our circadian rhythm. And so you get this growth hormone spike that occurs with a circadian rhythm, but you have this insulin spike, or you're hyperinsulinemic. That then in turn somewhat stymies the growth hormone spike, which has everything to do with fatty acid metabolism while we sleep. So we're overweight. We're having all these factors that are causing our body not to be able to burn fat appropriately so that we can lose weight, which then, it's just this circular pattern that we have to break at some point, which is why that's why our patients that we do weight loss with, they notice down the road their sleep improving. Well, why is that? Well, it's because they feel better, they sleep better, you're happier, your brain is more healthy and feeling better. But then we're also getting this we're not getting this hyperinsulinemic spike in the night that is tampering in a negative way with our metabolism through growth hormone. So then we get more fat burning, and then things start to change, right? And so it's kind of that, again, it's that circular motion, but it's just, we have to somehow put our foot in the middle of that line to stop it. And so that's why I always say, really going after the weight loss first is so important. And when we don't sleep, we also become inflamed. We know inflammation is, the basically the internal inflammation is the cause of all chronic disease in our body. So, the good news is I don't think I ever have to talk a person into believing that sleep is important. I think just a lot of people think, well, it just is what it is, and this is my lifestyle, and blah blah blah. And I hear a lot of people say, well, I've always slept 5 to 6 hours and felt great. And I'm like, do you still feel great with 5 to 6 hours? And it's like, no. And I'm like, yeah, because you're 50 now, and we don't bounce back as easily as we did when we were maybe 20 or 30.
Yeah, the thing that I learned from you is to stop eating a couple of hours before bed, right? And so that gives your opportunity for your growth hormone to kick in and help you go into a deeper sleep. But what messes me up is I got to get up to go to the restroom in the middle of the night, and that disturbs my sleep. And as I've gotten older, how do you deal with that, Dr. Kris?
Well, so typically more of a guy problem, right? And so, simple things like trying to cut off our fluids maybe a few hours before we go to bed, trying to think of it just like food. If I'm going to cut my food off at 8 p.m., I'm going to cut my fluid off at 8 p.m. as well. Although some people really get thirsty and so I always just kind of say sip on fluids at that point. Alcohol, of course, if we consume alcohol before we go to bed, we're going to get up to urinate more as well. Maybe that person needs some sort of a alpha blocker or something like that, medication wise, to actually help with benign prostatic hyperplasia or hypertrophy. Maybe they've got a big prostate that's actually pushing, which is pushing on the urethra, which is something that commonly happens to us as us guys age. So we need to shrink the prostate down. So there's different ways to go about it. I'm always surprised at how many guys come in and say, yeah, I get up 3 times a night and have been for however long. And I'm like, really? Like 3 times a night you get up? Like, that's not okay. There's too many things we can do for that now. I would say once a night is fairly normal for our 50 plus, especially if you drink a lot of fluids, as we should, right? So I think that's probably about as good as I think we probably should expect if we're sleeping 8 hours is once. But as your sleep improves, you'll find that you can get up, urinate, go back to bed, and not lose too much with that.
Yeah. So when you talk about hygiene, let's say, give us kind of a best practices to start preparing to sleep better. Let's say that we're listening and we go, okay, what are some of the things that I can implement now that'll help me start to improve my sleep?
Yeah. To not sound dramatic, take the TV off the wall. If someone really wants to be all in their sleep, is to take the TV off the wall. Now that may be hard to do. I would seriously do it, but my wife would not be okay with that because that's her crutch. Um, but
Okay,
at least
but let me ask you this. So why the TV off the wall? We're stalling going to sleep. We're receiving light emissions. What's going on?
keeping our brain active, we're kind of doing all of those things. We're kind of like in a microcosm doing everything wrong with the TV. Okay, it's emitting the wrong type of lights. It's keeping our brain active. The lights flashing are keeping our brains active. That's why it's everything that we say to try to avoid all in one little package. All right, and so any sleep doctor you go to is going to tell you, the best thing you can do is take the TV out of your room. Now that's not going to happen in most bedrooms. Okay. I would say 98% of people that listen to this are going to say, I'm not taking the TV off the wall. And I get it. Come to my house, there's a TV on the wall. Okay. But maybe you set boundaries for that TV. Maybe you say, like, okay, especially like, let's say you're empty nesters, which one more year will be, and maybe get in bed at 8 o'clock and you say, all right, we'll watch TV till 9:30. And at 9:30, if we're trying to go to bed at 10:30 is when we'll go to reading a book or listening to like I said, there are some really great apps out there these days that really do work well of calming the brain. They tell stories, they play different types of sound that can be very, very effective if you choose to utilize those things. The room needs to be dark. We just actually put blackout curtains on our whole bedroom. You need darkness. We're supposed to sleep in the dark, not in the light. Okay, light and sun wakes our brains up as it's supposed to. Again, the light in the room. If you are in that, if you're not, let's say you took the TV off the bedroom, but you keep all of your can lights on, with the nice bright LED bulbs, you're not gaining a whole lot there either. And so it's either changing those bulbs out or dimming them. I put a dimmer switch on our bedroom. So at least if I want light, we can take it way down. We find that to be really effective. That's one thing we both do agree is the dimmer is dimming the lights. Coldness, believe it or not, we sleep better in a cold room. I will tell you one of the biggest things that's been a biggest positive factor in our sleep has been I'm not promoting any brand. This just happened to be the one that we have. We use the Uller, which is a chilling mat. It runs, basically has this mat that you put under your bed sheet, and it has cooling water coils, I guess is what you would say. And it pumps cold water through it. Like I keep mine at 60 degrees. Crescenta keeps hers like at 65. So you're kind of warm on the top side, but cold on the back side, which that had made a tremendous impact. Like now when we travel and we don't have our Uller, they need to come up with some sort of a truly portable Uller version you can take with you when you're on a trip or something, because it really, body temperature makes a big difference in sleep. So a lot of people and the nice thing about the Uller or those chilling, well, they're very expensive on the front side. So I guess you probably never make up the amount of money that you pay for it, but you don't have to keep your room as cold if you do that, because your temperature under the sheets is where you need it to be. So temperature is extremely important. Most people 66 to 68 degrees is the proper room temperature for most. Not eating before you go to bed at least 2 hours, keeping the room truly dark, so no lights from outside, especially if you're in an urban setting. We live out in the middle of nowhere, so it's like the moonlight that comes in, but not like street lights, things like that. But keeping it dark in your room, making sure your bed is comfortable. I know it's understated, but if you got how old's your mattress? Is it comfortable? Do you like it? There's so many great mattresses out there today. Everybody likes different mattresses. Pets, like, okay, I'll give you an example of why our sleep's been disrupted lately. We have a very old dog, and now she roams at night and she sleeps in our room. And so it's just constant up and down, up and down. Crescenta took her to the vet yesterday and got I don't know what they put her on, but she slept all night last night. And amazingly, I slept all night last night because we didn't have to deal with a dog. Some young couples, kids, right? Keeping the kids keep you up. You're dealing with those things, and obviously those are things that we have to deal with in life. But it's a great example of how we feel when they interrupt our life. So, putting your phone, if you're not I guess, a doctor or somebody that has to have their phone on, putting that do not disturb on so that, if anything that comes through, you can deal with in the morning, staying off the phone. We haven't talked about technology, staying off of social media and those things. I struggle with this one. I fully admit that I'm addicted to social media, Twitter and those things, especially, by the way, if there's any Astro fans listening, especially when our Rangers beat the crap out of the Astros 2 games in a row, and so, last night I'm sitting there reading all about the Rangers because we're going to go to the World Series maybe. So things like that, trying to break habits, start new trends, maybe not doing it all at once, although that's the best way. And then there's things like supplements and different things that we can try. What I don't like to use is like Ambien. Okay. Ambien's a sleep addictive substance. Yeah, it'll put you to sleep, but then wait in 2 weeks when you don't have your Ambien, you fly to Vegas and you forget your Ambien and you can't hardly sleep at all because now you're addicted to Ambien. And as I tell patients, you're not addicted like going to go crave it on the corner. You're just addicted in the way that you need it to sleep. That's not fixing anything. That's why I don't like to use sleep aids if I don't have to. I'll use them short term. There's a few sleep aids I don't mind too bad, but as I've gotten more into it, that's where I like the CBD or we have some different herbal remedies that really help kind of reset that circadian rhythm. There's a peptide called deep sleep inducing or delta sleep inducing peptide DSIP that can be effective for some. It has mixed results, but can be effective for some. So there's just different ways to ketone aid, a very small dose of ketone esters. By the way, I want to stress a very small dose of ketone esters, like 2 milliliters, like a very tiny dose. Anything more than that will probably keep you awake. It's kind of funny. Small dose puts you to sleep. Big dose or normal dose keep you awake. Ketone esters can be very effective for helping people sleep. So like I always say, when I sit down with patients that have sleep issues, we just start saying, hey, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to change? What in your lifestyle, how desperate are you, right? Like my desperate patients for sleep will do anything I say. My ones that are kind of like, well, I'm not desperate, but I realize it's a problem, are willing to start adapting some of these different things so that they can improve their sleep overall. And then again, talking them into some form of sleep monitoring so that when they come back in a month or 6 weeks, I know if they've improved. Oh, we forgot one of the most important things, hormones, hormonal balance. I can't believe I forgot to say that this deep into the podcast, but hormonal balance is extremely important. Think about a lady, okay? Menopausal lady with these hot flashes out the wazoo, trying to sleep, and she's throwing the sheets off because she's burning up, but then she's cold because the hot flash goes away and maybe her thyroid's off, and you just really create this up and down situation for most women. So hormonal balance is crucial for sleep. Progesterone for the females really helps soothe the brain and calm the brains down so they sleep better. So again, there's so many tools in the toolbox for sleep. It's all patient dependent, what they're willing to do. But we can always help in some form with sleep.
So when someone comes to you, what's kind of your checklist priority, or how do you approach figuring out like the biggest levers you can address right away?
So typically most people that come into our practice come with a set of labs, right? And so we start with the labs, and labs start to kind of guide me typically along with the patient's history. Sometimes patients know why they don't sleep well. They'll self-tell on themselves, like, hey, I'm a really stressful person. Some people are like, no, it's not stress. I just don't sleep. Or, hey, I go to sleep okay, but I wake up frequently. So, I don't know that there's exactly one way. It's typically history, and labs is the biggest thing that guides me. Again, I like to kind of get a feel for my patients and feel like, do I have a patient, because everybody's level of being in is different, right? Like, are you fully in? Are you kind of in? Do you have 1 foot in the pool, 1 foot out of the pool? Those type of patients that are kind of like iffy, you kind of got to start slow with them, kind of progress them over a few visits. Because if I give them 33 things to do on their first visit, they're going to push back, where some patients are looking for 33 things to do, right? And they're all down for it. So I just try to take each patient individually, but many times the first place we start is hormonal balance, because simply if you feel better, you sleep better. If you sleep better, you feel better. And it's the best way I can put it. It's sleep better, feel better, feel better, sleep better. And we have to do one of those first, right? We can't do them both at the same time. So typically we like to try to go after feeling better, and then working towards sleeping better.
Okay, so toning down eating, kind of shutting it off a couple hours before bed, addressing the lights, and you call it hygiene of the room. So coolness,
Darkness.
yep, a comfortable mattress.
Even sheets, like, right? Like, I mean, I used to think it was ridiculous to spend a lot of money on sheets, but I don't know about you, but a nice set of sheets, I sleep way better than something that was, $4.99 at Big Lots. Not that Big Lots can't have nice sheets, but $4.99 probably not. So, I mean, it's even as simply as making everything comfortable, being a little bit, what's the word, bougie, having nice sheets, a blanket, pillows. Oh my God, pillows. No two people like the same pillow. Crescenta, my wife, sleeps with a totally different pillow than I do. And when we go on the road, totally different pillows. So it's finding comfort. You have to be comfortable, especially as we get older. But yes, sorry, I kind of derailed you there.
No, so these are good things. I like to figure out a lot of categories that I can start to consider. It's overwhelming when you think of all the many things.
Yeah, because people can fix that right away, right? They can set their bedroom up for success. All right.
Yeah.
They can get us a good mattress. They can make sure they've got good curtains that don't let the light come in. They can make sure if you do have a dog or something that keeps you awake, if you have the ability to kick them out of the bedroom, if they're not 83 years old, as I feel like ours is, and you feel guilty, those type of things. Or kenneling dogs. We didn't talk about pets in beds. Pets in beds typically don't go together either. All right. Because they move around, we move around, they move around. Just one more thing to disrupt your sleep. So, we have a little Westie, and we try to, unless we just fall asleep, he stays on the bed until it's time to go to bed. Then he has to go get in his kennel. He actually sleeps better. We sleep better.
Yeah. So then we're wanting our growth hormone to work.
Mm-hmm.
While we're asleep. So that's why we're addressing our food consumption, shutting that down. When the growth hormone is at work, what's happening? You're producing ketones. Is that why you're sleeping better?
No. You're just, growth hormone is our repair mechanism, and one of our major repair mechanisms in the body. And so, insulin is everything against metabolism that growth hormone is for metabolism. And so why are most people overweight in America? As you probably heard me say, it's because of hyperinsulinemia and food consumption / quality of food. And so we want our insulin levels to be low. We want our growth hormone levels to be high. Growth hormone levels higher are going to make us feel better because it's going to repair, it's going to decrease inflammation, but it's going to increase that fatty acid metabolism. So we're burning more fat. So all those things, again, working on weight loss or maintaining weight, like you or I aren't necessarily trying to lose weight. We're trying to just keep from gaining weight, or at least bad weight. Right. And so we just have to look at those different things like that. So that's kind of the best way I would explain it.
Excellent. And then hormones are a big thing. So there's like and in technology. So we kind of have like 4 categories.
Mm-hmm.
One time you mentioned Wi-Fi is the issue.
Sure. Yeah. And this is always a hot topic, Wi-Fi. Some people believe in it, some people don't. There's certainly meters today that you can buy that will actually tell your level of EMF fields. We actually have EMF magnets. So it's kind of one of those things, good and low levels, bad and high levels. And so there are things, if you really get off the beaten path, there's things like magnets that you can put on your bed that you can turn on that block some of these different Wi-Fi fields, or you can move like where's your router, right? Like, we used to have a bed and the router was underneath the bed. And so making sure that you're trying to, especially like if you're an empty nester, maybe moving your router as far away in the house as you possibly can. I always remember a doc telling a story of a guy who could not sleep and could not figure it out until he mentioned, like on the 4th, 5th visit, like, where's your router? And it was under the bed, and they simply moved it on, like, within a few weeks, he was back to sleeping perfectly fine. So, I think some people can go a little too much with that kind of stuff. To each everyone has their own opinions on Wi-Fi. You can't rid yourself of Wi-Fi. You can unplug it though at night. That's one thing I tell patients is like, if you're really concerned about Wi-Fi, unplug it, just literally unplug the bad boy at night, plug it back in the morning. If that doesn't mess up your network in any way, especially like us, we live out in the middle of nowhere. If we unplug our Wi-Fi, there's no Wi-Fi. We're not going to be getting any of those EMF fields. So yeah, that can be a player as well.
Well, excellent. So I imagine if someone wants to contact you and have a discussion about this, they need to go to your website. Any other way to connect and engage?
Yeah. So easiest way, of course, is the researchclinic.com. Click on the little consultation link, and that'll start you through the process. You're also welcome to give us a call at our 817-599-9902 number. There's a few different prompts. Just listen for the new patient prompt. Hit that one. Take you to the right person. Are the two easiest ways to get a hold of us. And start a conversation if that's what they'd like.
What's new on the horizon, Dr. Kris? What do you got? You had a surprise coming up for us?
There's a lot of things changing right now. Some for the good, some not for the good. The FDA did some things with peptides that we're not real happy about, but I think there's actually a lot of potential down the road. So I'm telling my patients that it's going to be fine. We're going to have alternatives. We're going to have new things. So it's just a little bit of a time of flux, but as Leonard Pastrana said, who we've had on our podcast before, he said the other day, times like this actually breed opportunity. And, it just allows us to look at things a little differently and come up with new solutions. So things we'll talk about down the road, though.
All right. So I'm going to run our outro. Good job today. Here we go. Thanks for joining the Dr. Kris Podcast. If you learned something today and you want to connect and get more information, visit our website, www.drkris.life, where you can find more great information or even schedule a time to learn how you can engage with Dr. Kris. Be sure to follow, like, share, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Dr. Kris Podcast. Vegas, he's back in the game. He's grown hair. Lots more to come, folks. Any last words for me?
No, I don't think so. Just everybody have a great rest of their week.
All right, that's a wrap.